Welcome to Fly on the Wall podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sonksen, CEO and founder of Church Boom. Here you get to sit in on a live coaching session as I coach pastors through the ministry challenges we all face. If you find this podcast helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Welcome to today's podcast with my good friend Jeremiah, and we are talking about assimilation. How important is that? That people are coming to our church, guests are coming, but how do we assimilate them into our church in a way that keeps them coming and become part of the church family? It's a great conversation. I want to remind you to check out churchboom.org, and if you get a chance, check out Church Boom University. Such an incredible tool and resource for you to belong to. It's a membership that you belong to where you get master classes and books sent to you and just such great stuff there to just grow as a leader. And I think you'll love it. Go to churchboom.org and check out Church Boom University. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, church.boom, and also Facebook. You can just look up Church Boom. Let's jump into the conversation now with my friend Jeremiah. I think you're going to love this one. Let's jump into it, man. What do you want to chat about today?
Man, so we bought a property about 2 years ago. I met with a friend of mine out here, and we have new people coming every week, and then it's like we are failing on any bit of keeping them. And so our assimilation process, we realize, is really broken.
Okay.
So yeah, that's one of, I've got a list of things to talk to you about, but I'd say that one of the biggest ones is our assimilation process.
What are you guys currently doing right now?
So we have pieces in place of if we have a newcomer, we want to get them to the next steps table, capture their information. So what we've done is we realize that it's going through a lot of people's hands and nobody's championing it. We just hired a new person who's going to be that's going to be their sole purpose.
Okay.
Is championing any new first-time guests, newer people to City View Church.
Yeah. So here's a couple things I would tell you. Comes up a lot here on the podcast because I think it's a challenge for a lot of people. What you've got to capture is, Jeremiah, if you're having enough first-time guests, you need to capture what's called the speed of engagement. So right now, the average person will take about 6 months or so to even get engaged into the life of the church. But the rate of people staying with your church up to that point slims down quickly. So what you want to do is, you want to create the speed of engagement. So we want to get people connected to the life of the church quicker, group or in serving. You don't want it to take months and months. You want to take a lot less time to at least get them connected. So when I say speed of engagement, I meant engaged in the life of the church, groups or serving. Most of the time it's serving. Maybe there'll be an usher once a month or a greeter once a month or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're going to do that through two things. One, you've talked about assimilation. That is your system, your strategy. You want to assimilate people. You want to move people along. So, okay, I come here on Sunday and then I go to, meet the pastor once a month or whatever. But everybody's got their little ways of doing stuff. You got to have someone own it, like you said. But that is through the system. So when you're engaging people, you're going to do it through the system, but you're also, this is the big one that most people miss, you got to do it through your staff as well. So the way that you do that is you say, hey, look, we want to engage people quicker. So, we're going to do it through the system. We're going to have meet the pastor. We're going to do that once a month. We're going to have a connect table, whatever. You and I have talked about that a million times. Most people have that stuff. The staffing is, okay, here's my 5 staff members. And over the next, 60, 90 days, how many do you think we, the staff, could recruit onto our teams over the next 90 days? So, hey, youth pastor, could you get 3 or 4? Hey, so-and-so, could you get 4? Could you get 5? Could you get 5? Could the children's pastor? Now, all of a sudden, check that out. You've got 5 staff members. Let's say they all get 5 people in 90 days. 5 times 5 is 25. Now, in 90 days, you have 25 people recruited into the ministry, and in 90 days, maybe your system produced 10 or 15. Now you've got 40 in 90 days. People used to want to believe before they belong. Now they want to belong before they believe. So you want to get people connected to the life of the church faster. Do it through your system. But don't just, a youth pastor sits back and relies on the system. No. We also are going to have all of the staff do it. When that 90 days is up, Jeremiah, run the 90 days again. Okay. When that 90 days is up, run it again. Think about that for a moment. If you got 40 people engaged in the life of the church in 90 days, what if you did that 4 times? Because there's 4 90 days in a year, if you understand what I mean. There's 4 90-day blocks in a year. Well, if you do 40 people in 90 days and you did that 4 times over, that's 160 people engaged in the life of the church. There's no way November of next year, December of next year, whenever, there's no way a year from now that you're the same size church with 160 new people involved in ministry. It's impossible. So you will grow if you engage people faster through the system, but also through the staff. It will grow.
That's good.
And you got to put it on the staff. They got to engage it, because everybody is often, and one more thing I'll say is everybody is, most pastors, most leaders, we are focused on the result. We are not focused on the activity. The activity is get people engaged. You get more people engaged, you'll get the result of growth. We often focus on the growth and say, okay, our church wants to be 500 by the end of the year or whatever. Okay, what's the activity that's going to get you there? You can't hold your staff accountable to the result, but you can hold them accountable to the activity. That's what you do, and it'll change everything.
That's good.
Yep.
That's really good.
Yep.
So
what else you got?
One more question in that.
Oh no, that's all right. Keep going. Yeah.
So in that, I know that typically, you have a new person that comes. What's a good process of like, okay, within the first few days we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then like by the end of a 3-week period of time, that new couple, that new family have had these many engagements or this kind of engagement from us. I've heard so many different things to do. What have you found are some good, tried and true things?
You're talking about when they come to the church, or are you talking about when they get engaged in the life of the church?
Like say they've come to the church a couple times, they've been in the audience, but now they're going, you know what? I'm going to actually go to that, meet the pastor, or I'm going to take a next step, and I'm going to actually give them my information today. Yeah. Once we got their information, I'm not saying like in kids ministry, but even in kids ministry, let's say they finally have trusted us with their phone number or their email. Right. What have you seen works of saying, okay, we're going to now, because I've heard some churches like you text them that same day, you call them the next day, you send them an email 3 days later, then you do this at the end of week 1, and then so all of a sudden they've had like 7 points of contact within the first 2 weeks. Yeah. What have you found that a system that works in once somebody said, hey, here's my info, I'm trusting you now?
Well, I don't know if there's one specific that's worked. I think points of contact are important. I think it's important to not be a burden, but to be a blessing. When they trust you with the information, I think you can text them. I don't think there's a perfect recipe. I've heard churches do nothing but text. I've heard churches do text and a call. And I think it's a matter of figuring out what works. I do think you need to have a few points of contact throughout it. I think the bigger issue isn't so much, hey, we text them a couple times, sent them a little card, handwrite a note. I've seen that a lot. Delivering cookies to their house, thanks for being a guest at our church, and I've seen all of it, and I think all of it works. And I think in that first week or two, you have to figure out what points of contact you want to make that work. I can't say this is the tried and true system. I would go to the stronger part, not so much, hey, I gave you my information, now text me 3 or 4 times or whatever, but how do we get them to a point of some sort of engagement? Whether that is again, meet the pastor or a staff member recruiting them or whatever. Getting them into a room outside of a Sunday, getting them into a conversation outside of a Sunday is key.
Yeah.
That's why you want your staff working it, and you got to holding them accountable to how many people they're going to recruit. We're not looking for them to recruit people that have been at the church for 5 years. We're looking for them to recruit people that have been at the church for less than 9 months.
Yes.
That's what we're looking for them to recruit.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's points of contact. I've seen people send a text, then send an email, then maybe send a text on the Friday before the Sunday. How can we pray for you? I've heard that a lot because that creates an interaction. It's very non-threatening.
Yeah.
Hey, we have staff meeting today. We just want to know how we can pray for you. I've seen those kind of things, and I think you have to play with 3 or 4 of those things. As much as you can automate them is important, but it's not just that. It's after that. It's the point of contact where there's engagement, there's meet the pastor, there's pizza with the pastor, there's the children's ministry having a conversation with them and maybe helping them become an usher or greeter. To me, that's the bigger retention. The bigger retention isn't a text or the bigger, everything moves at the speed of relationships. And so once they feel like they're connected into the life of the church, that's, with all the churches we're coaching across America, and there are a lot of them, hundreds of them, we say, look, man, get people engaged in the life of the church, because once they join a tribe, they're less likely to leave. That tribe might be usher or greeter, but once they join a tribe, they're used to getting followed up on. You go to a hotel and you get a text the minute no one's, I'm not going to say impressed, but it's good for points of contact, but it doesn't cause me to go, I'm going to start going to that church now because I got an automated text. It's everything moves at the speed of relationships. So moving people to that point, holding your staff accountable to recruiting, that's the key.
Okay.
That is definitely the key. So it's not just the first week or two, it's can we get them engaged?
Okay.
That's awesome.
That's
we got time for one more question. What else you got?
So I am a highly relational leader.
Yep.
And as our church grows, it's getting to a point where I am feeling that just that tension of I'm not going to know everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody likes me and personality. Some of this is leadership. Some of this is me personally. Like, how do I balance that pastoral responsibilities, the leadership development, pouring like all the congregation, people knowing how do I balance that? Like, how?
Well, you are highly relational. I think that's a strength. I don't think it's something that you should shy away from. It's a great strength. However, as you grow, that reality becomes more dim. So you move from saying hello to everyone to choosing who you're going to have a deeper relationship with.
How do you choose?
Well, let's look at the model of Jesus. I think you have to be more strategic in your choices.
Yes.
Jesus, his 3 closest people are Peter, James, and John. After that, it's the other 9 disciples. After that, it is a crowd. You have to know in your mind, outside, I've got my family, got my kids in sports, I got my wife, I got this, that, and whatever you got going on. How many hours can you have in a month devoted to relationships that are not just friendships, although you should have friends, don't get me wrong, but you have to decide really not just with people in the church, but with your staff, with your key leaders. Here's what I always say, because Jesus was 3, the rest of the 9, and then like 500, the crowd. Okay, bring that into modern terms, in our modern terms. Who gets Jeremiah's one-on-one time? Who gets Jeremiah's group time? Who gets Jeremiah's digital time? That's the way that I think you have to start looking at it, is who's going to get your one-on-one time? It can't be everybody. Who's your top 4, 6, 8 people that's like, I've got to keep a pulse on them. They're driving our church. I got to stay close to them. I got to go to dinner with them. I got to have a relationship with them. It can't be 100. It can't even be 20. But it can be 4, 5, 6. It's your top people. It's the ones that you're doing ministry through. You have to figure out that for you. Then you move into group time. All right. All the staff together. Okay, not everybody gets your time, but all the staff together, the key leaders, the 25 people that come into a room, they get more group time. And that's what you have to start figuring out. You're highly relational, no question about it, and that's an amazing strength. I've known you for years. You're definitely highly relational, and again, a great strength. But you have to become strategic in those relationships because you'll end up creating a lid for the church.
Yes.
Because you're not pouring into the right people. You're not pushing the right people. Why did Jesus spend time with Peter, James, and John? He just liked them better? Or did he see something in them that would end up moving the gospel forward and the progress forward? Peter became the first pastor of the first local church.
Yeah.
It was no accident that he spent time with Peter because he was setting Peter up for what he was going to become. You have to do the same thing. Who's your Peter, James, John? Who's your 5, 8 people like, man, they get my one-on-one time? This group of leaders, the 25, 30, 40 group of leaders, high-level volunteers, man, I teach them quarterly. I invest in them. We hang out and have pizza, and we talk about leadership together. Then who gets the email, the videos from you? Hey, this is Pastor Jeremiah. Who gets that? And you have to figure that out because otherwise you'll create the lid. And it really comes down to capacity. Who do you see has capacity? Who do you see that you need to invest in that's going to become the Peter for you in the future?
Yeah. I feel like that's my biggest tension right now.
Yeah. Well, and that's because you're highly relational. The highly relational person is always going to have that tension. But if you don't wrestle with the tension and create resolution, you'll end up unintentionally creating a lid. So if you don't wrestle with it and figure that out, you become the lid, and you don't want to be the lid. I know you don't, but you will become that lid if you don't figure out, okay, who am I spending time with? Remember one more thing before we jump off here is because I do need to jump on another call, but you have to know the difference between investing and spending. Spending time with people doesn't mean you're investing in them. You need to know when you're spending and you need to know when you're investing. Hey, I went out to pizza with my top 5 leaders and we all hung out and laughed all night long. That's awesome. You spent a lot of time with them and that's amazing. But there's a difference between investing and spending. Spending is more transactional. I spend time with you, you spend time with me. Investing is transformational and it's long-term. It's like putting $100 a month into a retirement. You're not going to be rich at the end of the year, but if you keep doing that for 20 years, you're going to have a lot of money. That's investing. You have to know the difference with your leaders when you're spending and when you're investing. You have to do both. You have to do both. So know the difference, but man, anyway, hey dude, I hate to cut it short, but I do need to jump on this other one. Man, it's always good to see your face, dude, and it's been a while since we talked, but man, I hope and pray everything is going amazing in your world. But,
thanks, Chris.
Absolutely. And anything you ever need, just let me know. But thanks for jumping on today, buddy. Good to see you, man.
Nice to see you.
Right. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for checking out today's podcast. Hope you enjoyed the conversation with Jeremiah. Don't forget to check out churchboom.org and check out Church Boom University. Such a great resource and ongoing leadership training for you, and we all need that in our life. And also don't forget to follow us on social media. Instagram is church.boom and Facebook is Church Boom. We'll see you on the next podcast.